Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we're talking about the leftist hellhole and time sink that is Twitter.com. Once a fun way to share a comment or a picture with friends has now turned into everyone and their mother thinking their opinions matter. And also, of course, like so many other social media platforms, Twitter has a heavy left-wing bias that comes straight down from the top. Higher-ups there are clearly favoring leftists, giving them blue check marks for verification without much questioning at all, while conservatives on the other hand can't get verified to save their lives. And also, in a new development, it appears Twitter is now shadow banning right-wingers too. President Donald J. Trump was even forced to say something about this soft censorship. His tweet about the topic reads as follows: Twitter is shadow banning prominent Republicans. Not good. We will look into this discriminatory and illegal practice at once. Many complaints. Well put, Mr. President. This is super unfair and not cool for Twitter to do to our peeps. And for those who don't know, shadow banning is an online practice used by social media sites to quietly silence people they don't care for. Basically, instead of just banning the person and not letting them come back on their website, shadow banning is where they secretly ban the person unbeknownst to them. While they still think their account is active and they still think they're posting and sharing stuff, well, really, a shadow banned person's posts don't show up on other people's feeds or accounts at all. It's pretty much a way of banning people without them knowing they're banned. They get no alerts or warning for it at all, and their account looks fine to them, but really, no one else can see their posts, and they're effectively dead, or their posts are just not shared as much depending on the site and situation. Now that we know more about what shadow banning is, and we've seen the president call out Twitter about doing it, next let's look at a Vice article about how Twitter promptly fixed this issue right after Trump called them out for it. It's called "Twitter appears to have fixed search problems that lowered visibility of GOP lawmakers." Check this out. Twitter appears to have adjusted its platform overnight to no longer limit the visibility of some prominent Republicans in its search results, a problem that the company said was a side effect of its attempts to clean up discourse on its platform. On Wednesday, Vice News reported that Twitter's drop-down search section was not showing the profiles of some prominent Republicans in what amounted to a shadow ban. Those affected included RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, Republican Reps Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, along with Andrew Surabian, Donald Trump Jr.'s spokesman and former special assistant to the president. The profiles did populate when entering a full search, but not in the more visible search menu. Twitter did not immediately respond for comment about the changes, but Twitter's Kayvon Bate-Kipper announced on Wednesday that the fixes would be coming. Well, that's good that they fixed it so quickly, but Twitter should have never done this bullshit to begin with. It's just so biased and plain wrong. And don't even try and give me that argument that private companies have a right to ban who they want. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube have become public service platforms at this point. So sure, while they can ban people and that's technically true, them showing political bias so blatantly and so brazenly, I still say that's plain wrong. I would never call for the banning of leftists I disagree with, and liberals shouldn't be doing the same thing to us conservatives. And it appears it's only the conservative side that's getting shit on here too. Like always, leftists can virtually get away with murder and they'll still be backed up and propped up by their cohorts, who are also running all of these websites, and all of Silicon Valley for that matter, which is the area of California that houses all of these tech companies, their headquarters and employees too. Of course Twitter is based in California. It all makes sense now. This is just another shitty story to come out of that liberal hellhole state this summer. Speaking of Silicon Valley, here's an article from the Valley editor at TheVerge.com, Casey Newton, who says Twitter should ignore the phony outrage over shadow banning. I wonder why. Could it be he's a biased leftist defending his fellows in Silicon Valley? I wouldn't be surprised, but let's give it a chance. Check this out. A consequence of covering the intersection of social media and democracy is that sometimes you wind up having to discuss things that are very dumb. The somewhat infuriating controversy over Twitter's shadow banning of prominent conservatives, something that it is in no way doing, is one of them. And yet how Twitter reacts to the attendant criticism could determine whether the company ever gets a handle on the abuse its platform is so well known for. Yesterday I mentioned a misleading story in Vice, which we went over already, whose headline then stated falsely that Twitter is shadow banning prominent Republicans like the RNC chair and Trump Jr. spokesman. It has since been changed. That story drew from a Sunday piece by Gizmodo that discovered how some controversial accounts were being demoted in search results. The first thing to note about this story is that it begins and ends with which accounts are suggested. When one begins typing in a name in the Twitter search box, that's it. The very worst thing Twitter can be accused of here is, in some cases, making you spell out someone's full name if you want to read their tweets. Like I said, very dumb. Sounds like you think this is dumb because you want it to happen to conservatives, Casey. Sure, the search result manipulation sounds small and funny when you put it like this, but you gotta remember, search is how people find people everywhere. The search on any app is pretty damn important, so if Twitter was pulling conservatives out of the search, that is kind of a big deal if you ask me. If Democrats or radical leftists were pulled out of the search, you better believe Casey would be singing a different tune here. But we really shouldn't be surprised that a left-wing mainstream media site like The Verge is claiming shadow banning isn't a thing. They are owned by Vox Media after all, and well, if you're new to the show and hadn't heard, we have covered and debunked Vox time and time again here. They are some of the worst left-wing propagandists out there today, and this Verge article fits right in with their liberal agenda. But in case you aren't fully convinced Twitter is shadow banning people for political reasons, let's take a look at a video from the heroes over at Project Veritas, who have done some pretty groundbreaking investigative journalism over the past couple years. These are the guys who caught CNN's Van Jones on camera saying the Russia conspiracy theory is a big nothing burger. Yeah, if you've heard that nothing burger quote going around before, it came from these guys in one of their expose interviews. And this time, Veritas has been questioning former Twitter employees about shadow banning. Check this clip out.
But they were kind of unwritten rules as far as the content that they would allow or disallow.
A lot of unwritten rules, and being that we're in San Francisco, we're in California, very liberal state, very blue state, you have to be, I mean, as a company you can't really say it because it'll make you look bad, but behind closed doors, a lot of stuff was like, hey, you have to do this way, or something like that. It was never written, it was more said.
Looks like we got a former Twitter employee admitting to exactly what we suspected. Although they won't admit it publicly, Twitter has a clear left-wing agenda. The guy even mentions being in San Francisco, California, and that having an effect on things. No big surprise there. Sounds like San Francisco being covered in shit isn't the only problem in the city this summer. Now we got one of their biggest tech companies getting called out for left-wing bias. And of course, it's the same left-wing bias that has brought the liberal policies into San Francisco. And these are the ones that have resulted in it being covered in shit and used drug needles. And now this left-wing failing ideology is destroying Twitter. Not only is Twitter tragically flawed and biased as hell, it's also losing money and its stock is going down because of this shit. And it's pretty much deserved if you ask me. I think James Woods was right on when he tweeted about this, urging people to sell off their Twitter stocks because hurting their bottom dollar is the only way they will listen. Same thing has been happening to Facebook, by the way. Mark Zuckerberg has been taking his company into the shitter too, with his biased, pro-liberal, anti-conservative bullshit, and his company's stock is suffering for it.
One strategy is to shadow ban so that you have ultimate control. The idea of the shadow ban is that you ban someone but they don't know they've been banned because they keep posting but no one sees their content. But at the end of the day, no one else interacts with no one else sees what you're doing.
Looks like we got another former Twitter engineer describing shadow bans this time. Pretty much the same way I broke them down earlier too. This goes to show that the company, Twitter, they know what they're doing with this system. It's a sneaky, manipulative way to run a public social media platform and, well, Twitter isn't afraid to use shady tactics, I guess. Funny how people still deny they would do this. Does the Verge.com plan a retraction or correction after going to bat against this story? I highly doubt it. They know what they're doing, folks. And Twitter knows what they're doing is wrong too. That's why they hide it. And that's why they deny it as well. And that's why Twitter fixed this as soon as Trump mentioned looking into it. And that's also why websites like The Verge are trying to cover this story up. Shadow banning is as shady and unethical as the name sounds. It's worse than banning your opponents even. And that's already a shitty thing to do.
Just look at the followers. It'll all be like guns, God, America. Like, and with the American flag and like the cross, something.
No one really likes America. No.
Like who says that? Who talks like that? It's for sure a god.
Looks like they hate America just as much as you'd expect. These black and brown diversity hires with their stark leftist politics and liberal agendas coming from the top, well, it should be no surprise they see actual Americans with pride and respect for the country as beneath them. Hell, they don't even think we're real. They think we're bots. It's gotten so bad there, so anti-American at Twitter that they don't even believe real patriotic Americans exist. They think we're goddamn fake accounts, and that's some real frickin' bullshit.
Can you get rid of them?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
You just lead them, but like the problem is there are hundreds of thousands of them, so you've got to like write algorithms that do it for you.
Yep, liberals have become so entitled, so pompous and brazen, they think they have a right to kick out people who are patriotic, pro-American, and of course, conservative. If you think this is a stretch, or you think I'm being overly dramatic, just take a look at another video here from Judge Jeanine Perino, who was recently kicked off the TV show The View for the same kind of reasons.
And then during the break, I had a nice conversation, and then all of a sudden the wheels fell off the wagon and they went after me. And I remember saying to myself, this is not the way it's supposed to work. The First Amendment is real in this country. You don't invite someone and then, you know, end the segment, and they pulled off and the segment was over. And I just remember doing this and saying, wow, I guess it's over.
Another leftist-run platform, The View, who pretended to be bipartisan by inviting the judge onto their show, but as she said, they promptly kicked her off before she could even say much. The left just loves silencing their opposition, don't they? And they think they're in the right for doing it, which is doubly messed up. That's why they continually continually slander conservatives as racist, sexist, and xenophobes. Because after they defame their opponents, they feel more justified and entitled to shut down their freedom of speech.
For some reason, the left thinks they have the right to shut you down. It is frightening what's going on in the country today. It really is. And for me, as much as I've been in the trenches for 30 years as a prosecutor, a judge, and a DA, and all that stuff, for me, that moment, just everything went, wow. Because if they would do this in front of America, what is happening behind the scenes?
You're right again, Jeanine. If the left is willing and thinks they have the right to shut down conservatives publicly, who knows what they think they can get away with privately? We've already seen Twitter exposed for doing shady shit like shadow banning, and Hillary Clinton basically tried to steal the election with her manipulation of the media and the polls. Hell, she was even caught stealing the nomination from Bernie Sanders. So make no mistake, guys, the attack on conservatives out there is real. The liberals are afraid of us, and frankly, they should be. We have the power, and more importantly, we have the right stance on the right issues, and the people are behind us too. All the left has going for them is still retaining some control of the media, corporations, and Hollywood stuff, but their actual political clout is dwindling day by day. In the end, we've seen yet another shitty story come out of San Francisco, California today. But this time, instead of talking about the actual shit in their streets, we're talking about the shitty and shady behaviors of one of its most prominent companies. I'm glad Twitter quickly changed this shadow banning, and I'm grateful to Trump for calling them out and pushing this fix to happen, but I'm afraid Twitter is going to need a lot more help to remain respectable and worthy of our business and our time in the future. We're going to need a full overhaul there and a removal of the corrupt liberal leadership pronto. And frankly, San Francisco could use some better leaders as well. What do you guys think? Is Twitter in the wrong here? Should they be allowed to shadow ban conservatives? Or anyone for that matter? And what do you think about the left's new trend of thinking they have the right to silence their opposition? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.